Good afternoon, I'm James Ezimoha and you're watching Anewz. Let's see your headlines. World leaders react after US President Donald Trump's threat to impose 30% tariffs on all imports from the European Union and Mexico. President Donald Trump says the United States will send Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. Far-right anti-migrant groups clash with police in Spain. Tensions are intensifying once again between the US and key trading partners. At the weekend, President Donald Trump threatened to impose a 30% tariff on all imports from Mexico and the European Union starting on the 1st of August. This has sparked strong political pushback and rattled financial markets across the globe.
US President Donald Trump has defended his administration's latest tariff hikes, which have sparked global concern and sharp criticism. On Saturday, Trump announced 30% tariffs on imports from the European Union and Mexico, effective from the 1st of August. He later claimed that tariff revenue had already reached record levels. Trump argued the US has long faced unfair trade practices, singling out the EU and Japan.
Our country made $25 billion last month, $25 billion. It hasn't done that in a long time, and a lot of that's done because of good management, and number one, and maybe even more importantly, the tariffs that are pouring in. We have tariffs pouring in at levels that we have never seen before, and they've only just started. That's really a small portion.
The move has sparked immediate backlash. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the tariffs will hurt businesses and consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. While the EU has paused countermeasures until early August, leaders warned they're preparing a strong response.
The United States have sent us a letter with measures that would come into effect unless there is a negotiated solution. So we will therefore also extend the suspension of our countermeasures till early August. And at the same time, we will continue to prepare further countermeasures so we are fully prepared.
France's Emmanuel Macron urged Brussels to act decisively, and Sweden's Prime Minister called the move a unilateral escalation. Germany's Vice-Chancellor Lars Klingbeil warned that Trump's actions threaten both the American and European economies. Meanwhile, Spain and others have reiterated their support for EU-led negotiations. On the other side of the Atlantic, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum called the move unfair, saying Mexico's sovereignty is non-negotiable. The country's ministries vowed to defend national interests, but emphasized ongoing negotiations. Trump has also threatened Canada with a 35% tariff, linking it to alleged fentanyl trafficking and trade imbalances. Markets reacted with volatility. Investors have become largely accustomed to Trump's policy methods, and stocks eased only moderately, while the dollar gained little on the euro.
The countdown to a major trade clash is on. President Donald Trump's threats to slap a 30% tariff on key European exports, from cheese and wine to steel and cars, is causing Brussels to create a retaliation list, warning that if the US hits hard, the EU will hit back.
From French vineyards to Italian cheese factories. From Spanish ham producers to German grain farms. Europe's food and agricultural industries are bracing for impact. President Donald Trump's new 30% tariff threatens to choke off a major export pipeline to the US, according to experts. These aren't just luxury items, they're multi-billion euro industries. A sudden drop in US demand could mean overstocked warehouses, halted orders, and production lines running slow, say analysts. In response, a wide range of American goods could soon face new European Union tariffs as well, such as meat and vegetables to textiles and machinery. Brussels says its list is ready to target billions of euros in US exports if Washington goes ahead with its 30% tariff on EU products. Last year, the EU exported more than 40 billion euros worth of cars to the US French wines, Italian spirits, German cheese, and European steel, are all part of a trade relationship valued at 1.7 trillion euros annually. Now, those sectors could be hit hard. As the clock ticks down to the 1st of August, industries across the EU are watching nervously and preparing for what could be the biggest transatlantic trade clash in years. The European Commission says it's still hoping for a breakthrough, but with less than 3 weeks to go, businesses are being told to prepare for disruption. The stakes are high, and industries on both sides, including automotive, agriculture, and pharmaceuticals, are bracing for impact.
U.S. President Donald Trump is set to meet with NATO chief Mark Rutte in Washington. This follows his announcement to supply missiles to Ukraine amid growing frustration over Russia's unwillingness to end the war in Ukraine.
NATO chief Mark Rutte will visit Washington, D.C. on Monday and Tuesday, where he will meet U.S. President Donald Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. The two-day meeting comes after Trump announced a plan to supply weapons to Ukraine through the Security Alliance. Under the deal, U.S. weapons, in particular Patriot air defense missiles, would be transferred to Ukraine and paid for by the European Union. Trump says sending Patriot air defense missiles to Kyiv is necessary due to Russia's unpredictability in ending the war, as he becomes increasingly frustrated with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I haven't agreed on the number yet, but they're going to have some because they do need protection. But the European Union is paying for it. We're not paying anything for it, but we will send it. It'll be business for us, and we will send them Patriots, which they desperately need, because Putin really surprised a lot of people. He talks nice, and then he bombs everybody in the evening. So there's a little bit of a problem there, and I don't like it.
Earlier this month, the U.S. had suspended weapons shipments to Ukraine, citing concerns about depleting its own stockpiles. So far, the Trump administration has only sent weapons authorized under former U.S. President Joe Biden. While the number of missiles under the new NATO-backed deal remains unclear, it signals Trump's growing disillusionment with Putin, who has resisted his efforts to negotiate a ceasefire.
U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, has arrived in Kyiv for a scheduled week-long visit. Kellogg is set to hold talks on security and sanctions against Russia. His visit comes ahead of Trump's meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, where military aid to Ukraine will be a key topic of discussion. Strengthening U.S.-Ukraine cooperation is also on the agenda. This marks Kellogg's second visit to Ukraine this year. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced an accelerated plan to boost France's defense spending. France has planned to double its defense budget by 2027 to 64 billion euros. Macron says the boost will be funded by increased economic activity and has been prompted by the uncertainty of the geopolitical landscape. His statement comes as NATO members earlier agreed to increase defense spending to 5% of their GDP.
Have a look again at the acceleration of events in recent months. The bombing on Iran, the fighting between India and Pakistan, with arguably one of the most intense air battles in recent decades, the ups and downs in American support for Ukraine, and the trade war between allies in this same context. Yes, we are witnessing the return of the nuclear phenomenon, the proliferation of major conflicts.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he's hopeful of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that could happen soon. Washington is backing a 60-day ceasefire plan that includes the gradual release of hostages, a partial withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and broader negotiations to end the war. Trump told reporters efforts are ongoing and that a breakthrough may happen in the coming days. 2 women are dead and several others injured after a deadly shooting spree in Kentucky. The suspect was later killed by police after a confrontation near a church. Authorities say the violence began when the gunman shot a state trooper near Bluegrass Airport during a traffic stop. He then fled and opened fire at Richmond Road Baptist Church in Lexington, killing 2 women and injuring 2 men. Police later traced a carjacked vehicle to the church grounds where the suspect was fatally shot during a standoff. Investigators believe he may have known some of the victims, but the motive remains unclear. Violent clashes erupted in southeastern Spain near Murcia over the weekend as far-right anti-migrant groups confronted riot police and local residents. The unrest followed the assault of an elderly man earlier in the week on Wednesday, which triggered rising tensions in the town of Torre Pacheco. On Saturday, authorities say fights broke out between far-right groups, locals and North African migrants. The motive for the assault remains unclear. One person was arrested while 5 people were injured. Tourists in Crete were stunned as migrant boats arrived on the popular beaches of Agia Galani. The landings come just days after Greece suspended asylum processing for sea arrivals from North Africa, a move drawing criticisms from rights groups.
Agia Galini's beaches turned into an unexpected landing site this week as migrant boats from North Africa arrived at the popular Crete resort. On Friday, 94 people were moved from a local facility to Souda port, then ferried to Piraeus and transferred to the Malakasa camp near Athens, leaving many tourists stunned.
They come about 420 people, and they come and they set them down, and they don't have to stay up, they have to stay down. And we are lying on the beach there, and it was very strange for us.
I was very shocked because many boats arrived and I don't know what it is. And then I see how the boats will arrive in the harbor, and people come and come and come, and another boat will come and a bus will come.
The Greek government's decision to temporarily suspend asylum processing for North African sea arrivals has sparked backlash from rights groups who say the move violates international law. While total sea arrivals to Greece fell by 5.5% in the first half of this year, landings in Crete and the nearby island of Gavdos have quadrupled, reaching over 7,000 since January.
I think there are 50, 60 people in one such a boat. I can't imagine it.
Greece, once the epicenter of Europe's 2015 to 2016 migrant crisis, is once again grappling with rising arrivals on its southern islands. But as the government tightens its policies, tourists and locals alike are left to confront a new reality washing ashore.
France has unveiled a new agreement offering greater autonomy to New Caledonia, a move Paris described as historic. However, it falls short of the full independence long demanded by many indigenous Kanaks. Anita Sharma has more from Paris.
An historic breakthrough emerges from here in Paris this weekend with a landmark agreement over New Caledonia. That's the French Pacific territory, almost 17,000 kilometers from Paris, that has faced cycles of unrest and political tension. After 10 days of intense negotiations with French President Emmanuel Macron personally taking part, leaders from both pro-independence Kanak movements and loyalist factions reached an accord to designate New Caledonia as a, quote, state of New Caledonia within the French Republic, enshrined in France's constitution. Let's get to the key parts of this deal now. Dual nationality and institutional status. New Caledonians will hold a special Caledonian nationality alongside French citizenship, and the territory will gain a customized institutional framework. Transfer of sovereign powers. While defense, justice, currency, and security powers remain with Paris for now, the accord paves the way for these to be transferred later, subject to local referendums. Cultural symbols and identity. The deal may also allow New Caledonia to adopt its own name, flag, anthem, and a formal citizenship code, further reinforcing its distinct identity. Let's get to expanded electorate now. The electoral franchise will be enlarged. Anyone born in New Caledonia or with at least 15 years continuous residence will gain provincial voting rights. That was one of the key triggers of the violence that occurred last year. This change could add more than 12,000 new voters, significantly impacting the balance of power in a territory where regional voters determine the composition of the local Congress. tariffs. And finally, economic reform, especially with nickel. An economic refoundation package was agreed upon with targeted support for the nickel sector, which is vital to the local economy. The historic compromise follows last year's deadly riots triggered by changes to voter rolls. The unrest resulted in 14 fatalities and with some reports citing approximately 3 billion euros in damages. Macron says this is an historic deal and a new chapter, emphasizing that it represents a bet on trust. The Baku Initiative Group has also played an active role here, helping bring international attention to this issue and supporting New Caledonia's right to self-determination. But the process still faces more steps here. The agreement must be ratified by the French Parliament later this year. A local referendum in New Caledonia is expected by early 2026, allowing citizens to approve the transfer of powers. If approved, New Caledonia could gain enhanced sovereignty, including possible UN membership, while remaining tied to France. This is significant because it firstly creates a novel institution model, not just independence, but a semi-sovereign state status inside France, setting a potential precedent for other overseas territories, as well as regions such as Corsica, which is seeking greater autonomy within France. On the strategic front, this safeguards France's presence in the geopolitically critical Pacific amid rising competition from China and the United States. Economically, success depends on revitalizing the nickel industry, which underpins local employment and growth. Politically, it offers a pathway to diffuse communal tensions, but whether it heals long-standing divides remains to be seen. Reporting from Paris for Anewz, I'm Anita Sharma. Now, back to Baku.
Let's talk to Pascal Mass, geopolitical analyst, joining us from Paris about the agreement that would see New Caledonia declared a state but would remain under French sovereignty as part of the Republic. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for your invitation.
Now, so is this outcome in line with aspirations long held by the Kanak people?
This is a trap. This is a trap from the French government with the association of the independentist movement to fire off all those who are not following the independence way. I mean, this document that your journalist has clearly selected gives autonomy more than autonomy, because it's clearly stated in the 13 pages document that people might be simultaneously member of the French Republic, citizen, and also citizen of the Caledonian territory. It is the first time in the whole political state history where some people can belong to a real state and another state which has no limits. And if we can go further in the declaration that has been signed on Saturday, most of the state powers might be transferred to this so-called Caledonian territory, including the currency, including the diplomatic links, and including the defense investment. At the same time, President Macron says that there is an emergency to strengthen all the defense of all territories worldwide, and especially in the Pacific, because of the wish from China, for instance, to get settlement there, and simultaneously is on the way to drop and to kick off the France from the Pacific area.
Now, how should we understand the paradox of the New Caledonia being declared as a state whilst continuing to remain part of France?
I'm very pessimistic, because New Caledonia is a special territory in the South Pacific, because the way of life and the level of life is higher than the neighboring countries, including Australia. So it's a part of richness in of the Pacific, while the other countries, the other small islands, are under the Chinese economic regulation and political Australian and New Zealand powers. But there is there won't be, as I used to say, there won't be independence for more than 24 hours. This is a trap for both, for loyalists and for independentists, because independentists will be under the complete power of China. Some other state islands in their area have been under this policy, and now they are crying.
Well, thank you very much for your time and insight.
You're welcome.
Another wildfire has broken out in Turkey's Izmir just days after a series of blazes swept through the region. So far this summer, hundreds of fires have erupted in the country, forcing nearly 50,000 people to evacuate their homes.
Helicopters dropped water to try to extinguish the latest forest wildfire in Turkey in the western province of Izmir on Sunday. In the district of Urla, firefighting teams battled to contain the blaze amid thick smoke and rising flames. 4 planes, 13 helicopters and 34 fire trucks were deployed according to the local forestry authority. Meanwhile, further north of the country, authorities say they've managed to contain a forest fire on the Yalova-Bursa border, which broke out near a village in Yalova's central district and a nearby neighborhood in Bursa. Helicopters, water trucks, a first response vehicle and personnel were deployed. Officials also reported that around 3 hectares of forest were damaged before the flames were brought under control through coordinated air and ground efforts. The latest fires come amid one of the most intense wildfire seasons Turkey has faced in recent years. In Izmir, 2 people were killed in fires earlier this month. Hundreds of blazes have scorched large areas of forest across the country this summer, forcing around 50,000 people to evacuate from their homes.
Turkey reiterates its support for the ongoing peace talks between Azerbaijan and Armenia. In a phone call with President of United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President Erdogan said Turkey is closely following the peace talks between Azerbaijan and Armenia taking place in Abu Dhabi. He reaffirmed Turkey's commitment to supporting peace in the Caucasus. Both leaders also praised their countries' strategic partnership, particularly in defense and technology. Kazakhstan is exploring new routes to export its oil to Europe, including the use of Georgian ports. The move is part of a broader effort to diversify exports options and reduce dependence on Russian transit pipelines. Let's talk to Professor Nika Chitadze of the International Black Sea University. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Now, what role can Georgia play in Kazakhstan's long-term oil export strategy?
Thank you for the question. I would like to mention here that, of course, transit potential of Georgia can be increased. We know here about the functioning since 2005, the pipeline Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, capacity of which is about 50 million tons of oil per year. But at the same time, you know that it is included to the agenda, the topic of the export, the additional volume of oil, black gold from Kazakhstan, particularly from Aktau towards Baku, and after from Baku towards the territory of Georgia and Turkey. It is expected by this way to increase the export of Kazakhstan oil by more than 10 million tons per year. We know here how functioning of the pipeline Tengiz-Novorossiysk from Kazakhstan to Russian Federation, capacity of which is about 62 million tons of oil. But at the same time, Kazakhstan, of course, is looking for the diversification of its export potential, including maybe first of all from the territory of Azerbaijan and Georgia. The pipeline is one way, but other way it's also to transport the Kazakh oil by railway from Aktau to Baku, and after from Baku towards Batumi, and after to the international market by the using the railway infrastructure of Azerbaijan and Georgia. Accordingly, I would like to say that this export of Kazakhstan oil through the territory of Azerbaijan and Georgia will play a very important role in the middle corridor, and will create the convenient base for the international cooperation, bypassing the territory of Russia and strengthening the statehood of the post-Soviet space, which are involved in the middle corridor projects.
Now, speaking about infrastructure, are there any infrastructure upgrades planned to handle increased volumes?
Sorry, I cannot hear you.
I said, well, are there any infrastructure upgrades planned to increase to handle the increased volumes? Infrastructure upgrades.
I cannot hear well, I apologize, but the issue is that in general, I think that not only by the way oil and gas, but I mean middle corridor in general plays a decisive role in the providing the transportation of different kinds of goods, including by this way oil and gas through the South Caucasus in Caspian Sea region, and can by this way connect with each other, by this way China and different regions of Europe, so Caspian and South Caucasus region. And at the same time, it's important in my point of view also to mention about railway Baku-Tbilisi-Halkalaki cars, because we know that Azerbaijan and China, they agreed that about 10 trains will cross by this way this railway, and the final by this way product later by this way it will be oil products, including by this way oil products from the territory of Kazakhstan, particularly from the Tengiz oil field of Kazakhstan, which is located in the Caspian Sea region, and by this way, of course, decreasing the export of oil towards Russia, decreasing the export of oil to Azerbaijan and Georgia, of course, will change geopolitical realities in the Central Asia, South Caucasus, and the White Black Sea area in general.
Thank you very much for your time and insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Syria has signed its first major international deal since U.S. sanctions were lifted at the end of June. The $800 million agreement with Dubai Ports World aims to modernize the Tartus ports on the Mediterranean. President Ahmad al-Shara, who leads Syria's transitional government, was present at the signing ceremony. This move marks a significant shift in the country's economic direction following the end of Bashar al-Assad's rule and the collapse of the long-ruling Ba'ath Party. The first summit of the Turkic Ski Resort Union was held at Azerbaijan's Shagdak Tourism Center, with participation from Azerbaijan, Turkey, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. The summit focused on boosting regional cooperation in winter tourism, launching joint promotion campaigns, and creating a unified tourism brand. Key outcomes included the launch of a skiing journalist club, the presentation of membership certificates to new resorts, and a commitment to expand off-season tourism and ski education. The union was established last year with support from the Organization of Turkic States. That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Anewz.